Don't Worry, Make Money, Chapter 16. Surround yourself with experts. Charles Givens, author of the phenomenally successful book Wealth Without Risk, has said, if you want to learn about money, learn from someone who has a lot of it. So, many people surround themselves with successful people, experts on making money, and people who have a lot more money than they do. Yet they are intimidated by them, frightened that people who are more successful won't be willing to spend time or share their ideas with us. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The reality is, accomplished people love it when someone takes an interest in their success. They love to share their wisdom, good ideas, or business secrets. It makes them feel wanted and needed. Two of my favorite people in the world each have a great deal of money. One is entirely self-made, the other comes from inherited wealth. Both are exceptionally willing to sit down and share ideas with me, or practically anyone else who asks them. The interesting thing, however, is that they both claim that very few people have the courage to ask to pick their brains for ideas. What a waste. I probably know personally over 100 super successful people, and I can't think of a single one whose door isn't almost always open for others. I've worked on projects with some very famous, successful people through some of my other books. When people ask me, how in the world did you convince them to participate? They're often shocked at the simplicity of my answer. I respond honestly by saying, I just asked them. You'll be amazed at the number of people who are more than willing to help, whether it's the owner of a successful grocery store, a top producing insurance salesperson, a well-known author, a physician, a lawyer, or an excellent teacher. Most won't and are willing to offer advice. In fact, asking someone you admire and respect for their feedback and ideas is the greatest compliment you can offer them. Not all, but most highly successful people in any field are available to help others. Usually, it's the people fighting to climb to the top who are the most frightened, insecure, or unwilling to offer guidance. If you do ask for help or advice and are turned down, you can bet that the next person you ask will be more than willing. If you want great advice and you want to avoid big mistakes, seek help. Surround yourself with winners. Don't get advice from Uncle Charlie unless he himself is a successful person. Go straight to the top. Chapter 17. Be aware of what you don't know and what you're not good at. My father used to tell me as he read my poorly written essays in school, Richard, it's not important that you're not a great speller. It's really important, however, that you know that you're not a good speller. That way, when in doubt, you can use the dictionary. Boy, was he right. I have gotten more mileage out of this tiny piece of wisdom than perhaps any other. My dad was absolutely correct, but not just about spelling. The same idea applies to virtually everything. In my work, for example, it's not critical that I'm an expert editor as long as I know my own weaknesses and limitations. I can hire someone to fill in where I'm weak. Similarly, I'm not a great coordinator for putting together all the details of a public lecture. No problem. I can hire someone who is. It's always smarter to do this, and in the long run, it's almost always less expensive and more profitable. The only time there would be a problem is if I didn't know that I wasn't good at something or if I was unwilling to admit it. Chances are you're probably really good at certain things and really bad at others. So what? Why should you frustrate yourself and waste your time doing those things you struggle with? This doesn't mean you can't learn new skills or improve existing ones. It merely suggests that you spend the bulk of your time doing whatever it is you do best, as well as that which is most important to your success. It's easy to get bogged down and defeated doing tasks you don't enjoy and aren't very good at. Certainly, many, if not most, of these tasks need to get done, but not necessarily by you. What if you could spend an extra 2 or 3 hours a day focusing on that which you truly love and are genuinely good at? What would happen to your productivity, creativity, and bottom line? You'll never know for sure until you try. But I can assure you that for me and for so many others, I know this simple idea has been an extremely profitable insight. Chapter 18. Become aware of the passion factor. As Marcia Senatar's incredible bestseller reminds us, do what you love, the money will follow. Perhaps the reason this book is so popular is that it reminds us of something we intuitively already know. When we're passionate about what we do, success will follow. Passion for life and for our work is a critical element of success and abundance. Passion is a virtually unstoppable attitudinal force that generates energy, creativity, and productivity. When you love what you do, it's difficult not to succeed. Your enthusiasm is obvious to everyone around you and contagious. Part of the process of creating passion in your work is choosing work that you truly love. Doing so requires conscious choice, which often takes a great deal of courage. It can be frightening to change career directions or to try something new, irrespective of how much we may want to. After all, most of us were indoctrinated into believing that walking a certain safe path was the way to achieve security. Fear is a powerful, highly destructive force that prevents many of us from pursuing our dreams. However, if you take a careful look at most successful people, more often than not, they have faced very similar fears and conquered them. A client of mine once said, I finally asked myself the question, whose life is this anyway? And when I couldn't answer the question, I knew I had to make a change. I have a story of my own that reinforces this strategy. Many years ago, I was taking the safe route. Shortly after college, I began work for an MBA, master's degree in business. The problem was I couldn't stand it. I dreaded every class and knew I wasn't on my path, following my own dreams. Although it was extremely frightening to me, I decided to walk out and never return. I was determined to follow my bliss instead of my predetermined career path. It was one of the best, most important decisions of my life. It's important to ask yourself, how safe is it really spending your time doing something you don't enjoy? How well can you perform a task you dread? How creative and original is your thinking? How easy is it to go the extra mile and or to do what's necessary to achieve greatness? The answers to each of these questions are clear. Without passion, your odds of success are minimal. You will either struggle in your career or burn out completely. But the opposite is just as true when passion for your work fills your heart. When you follow your heart, when you discover what is truly nourishing to your soul, an abundant, joyful life is just around the corner. Chapter 19. Experiment with the 1-hour solution. Today, more than ever before, there are vast numbers of financial opportunities available to those who want one and who are open-minded to doing something a little different. There are numerous part-time home-based businesses that are turning ordinary people into millionaires. Many of these businesses are fun, easy, and require no more than a few hours a week. In addition, many of these businesses require very little initial cash to get into and no prior experience. So what's the catch? Well, there is one, and you have probably already guessed it. As is so often the case, fear and worry are the greatest dream snatchers. The excuses I hear from people range from "I'm afraid I don't have the time" to "I'm afraid I can't do it" to "I'm afraid of what people will think." Fear is the single most self-defeating emotion in our lives. What would happen if you decided to follow the advice of this book's title, Don't Worry, Make Money? As an experiment, I suggest the following strategy. I predict that if you banish worry from your consciousness and choose a credible, financially solid, ethical, home-based, or multi-level marketing business, you can become financially independent in as little as 1 hour a day. You don't have to quit your job, change careers, or take on a great deal of risk. Spend some time investigating what's out there. Ask around. Be willing to do something a little different. Keep an open mind. Don't worry. The only catch is that you must actually spend a full, non-interrupted hour each and every day doing what is the critical inch of that business. You must spend the hour without fear. You must not worry about the outcome, about what others are thinking about you, about your past failures, about the fact that you don't have very much time, or about the fact that what you are doing isn't in your nature or anything else. If the most important part of the business is making phone calls, then you must spend the better part of your hour making those calls. You don't have to spend 1 minute longer than your agreed upon hour, but for this experiment to be given a chance, you must give it an honest hour. I predict that if you pick a business that you love and you faithfully spend your hour doing the key parts of the business, not simply busy work, that within 2 years, you will be well on your way to complete financial independence. The first and most important step is to eliminate worry from your life. If you choose to experiment with this strategy, I wish you the best of luck. I know you can be as successful as your imagination will allow. Chapter 20. Be prepared to walk away from a negotiation. You can usually go back. Many people get less out of a negotiation than is otherwise possible because of fear. Fear that if they don't accept the terms of the deal as is, they sabotage the deal completely. While it's possible this could occur, it's far more likely that you will sabotage your success, both immediate and long term. If you are unwilling to walk away from a negotiation, if you believe in your product or service, in whatever it is that you bring to the table, your time, your expertise, etc., you're virtually always better off if you're willing to walk away, to consider the option of starting over or bringing your business elsewhere. This doesn't mean that you do walk away, only that you're comfortable in doing so. You're not attached one way or the other. This don't worry attitude is applicable in most business situations. Let's consider one of the simplest examples, purchasing a home. Suppose you find a house that you truly love and the asking price is $100,000. You believe, however, that to make this purchase wisely, you should pay no more than $90,000. The current owner seems stubborn. The problem is you really love the house and don't want to jeopardize the deal. Being attached to an outcome can cost you a great deal of money. If you feel it's in your best interest to pay no more than $90,000 for this house, the wisest financial and emotional decision you could make would be to offer the $90,000, be willing to walk away and not worry about it. The simple act of not worrying about the outcome will, more often than not, come back to help you, because the truth of the matter is, most people are worriers. And it is very likely that the person you are negotiating with is one of them. Although there are rare exceptions, the recipient of your offer will almost never slam the door on the deal at this point. He will, however, be forced into making a very important, quick decision, most likely a decision that he is worried about. He can, of course, turn you down, but if he's a worrier, he might not. After all, he's turning away a sure thing in exchange for an unknown future, something that worriers can't stand. He may come back with a counter offer, but if he knows you are not a worrier, that you're perfectly willing to walk away, the counter offer is likely to be much lower than if he senses your fear. This is pretty simple stuff, but the truth is, the reality of making money and wise decisions isn't very complicated. However, not many people understand the importance of a don't worry attitude. If you do, you're one step ahead of the game. A friend of mine is the shrewdest negotiator I have ever seen. He once walked into a car dealership and made an incredibly lowball offer on a brand new luxury car. This is exactly what he said. "Good afternoon, sir. I have a certified check in my hands in the amount of $35,250 for which I'd like to buy this particular automobile. I know you're going to have to ask your boss, so the offer is good for 9 whole minutes, but not 1 second longer. I will not pay 1 penny more for the car, but the check is yours if you want to part with this car." As the visibly nervous salesperson started to respond, my friend calmly looked at his watch and said, "You have 8½ minutes left before I walk out that door." He got the car. Obviously, few of us would have the nerve or the means or perhaps even the desire to do this. Yet the example does demonstrate the power of the willingness to walk away. Clearly, my friend's offer had to be in the ballpark for what the car was truly worth. The dealership certainly wasn't going to give the car away, but my friend had factored that into his strategy. He did some research into the dealer's actual cost and knew that if they took the deal, they would still make a tiny profit. But he also knew that his price would, in all likelihood, be lower than anyone else's had paid for the same car. Since he wanted that particular car but wasn't attached to it, he couldn't lose either way. He knew that, in most cases, a salesman would have to spend a great deal of time with the potential customer before any sale would take place. In this instance, his total time involvement other than the actual paperwork was less than 9 minutes. It just might be worth it to the dealership to make a quick, small profit rather than wait days, weeks, or even months for a larger one. The key was his absolute willingness to walk away with no regrets whatsoever. You can implement this strategy with the utmost respect for the people with whom you are negotiating. There is no need to appear aggressive or obnoxious. All you need is a don't worry attitude. Experiment with this strategy, and I believe you will be well rewarded. Chapter 21. Be willing to change. In his wonderful book, Success is No Accident, Dr. Lair Ribeiro makes a statement that rings true to my ears and has been proven repeatedly throughout history. He says, "If you go on doing what you've always done, you'll go on getting what you've always got." What a powerful message. Sometimes, in order to create positive things in your life, you need to make some changes in the way you do things. The world isn't going to suddenly reward you by changing its conditions. Instead, you must alter the way you approach certain challenges. I've met numerous people who are virtually unwilling to change, even when their current affairs aren't working. People are frightened of change. Sometimes they even argue for their limitations by saying things like, I've always been that way, or I'm just not that kind of person, or I've always done it differently. If something isn't working for you, however, statements like these aren't relevant or helpful. It's critical to remember that if you go on doing what you've always done, you will go on getting what you've always got. Maybe you're not the type of person who believes in asking friends and family for favors, and you might even be proud of this fact. Still, there are times when asking for help might be just what you need to succeed. If you're stubborn and insist, I can't do that, you may be missing out on a wonderful opportunity. There are countless other examples of where an unwillingness to try something new or an unwillingness to do something differently will interfere with your chances for success. Take an inventory of your own stubbornness. Are there areas in your life where you do things a certain way simply because that's the way you've always done them? Without a doubt, keep an open mind is an overused phrase, yet relatively few of us actually do keep an open mind. Instead, we are stuck in old, worn-out ways. If you drop your fear and have the courage to be willing to change, my guess is that you won't have to go on much longer getting what you've always had. Chapter 22. Spend the bulk of your time on the critical inch of your business or project. Often, the greatest mistake people make in their quest for success is that they focus on the wrong parts of their business. Too much time and energy are spent doing things that, while perhaps necessary, aren't the critical, absolute important aspects of the business or project. I've seen people frustrated, claiming they didn't have time to make the necessary calls, speak to the decision maker, write the offer, ask for the deal, engage in critical due diligence, write the chapter, make the promotional or marketing effort, or whatever else might be the essential task. But somehow they did manage to find the time to clean their desk, make a few social calls, organize their computer disk, plan their weekend, review some files, set up a meeting, and do countless other tasks that have limited relevance to performance and success. Perhaps at a given moment, solving a particular problem is the critical inch of your business. Maybe it's generating additional cash flow, diffusing an interpersonal issue with a colleague, finishing a report, writing a speech, or addressing a technical issue. Part of the solution is asking the relevant question. What's truly most important? More often than not, the answer is quite different from the answer to another question. What seems to be the next logical or convenient thing to do? Frequently, we'll jump from one activity to another without any real thought as to the true relevance of our actions. We'll respond to a mini crisis, phone call, or something that's been sitting on the desk before taking on the one activity that truly makes a difference. About twice a week, I work out at a local athletic club. The same principle seems to apply to working out and getting in shape. It's interesting to watch the different ways people work out. There's one group of people, I'd like to think I'm one of them, who roll up their sleeves and get to work. They go from machine to machine, exercise to exercise, until they have completed their workout. In 30 minutes or less, they can be in the shower and out the door. Generally, these people are in pretty good shape. They did what they intended to do. There's another group of people, however, who never quite get to it. They socialize a great deal, take 15 or 20 minutes to get changed, and walk around the gym looking at the equipment. Sometimes they'll read the paper or take a steam bath. Recently, I overheard a phone conversation between one of these men and his wife or girlfriend. He said to her, with a serious look on his face, "Honey, I just don't get it. I come down here to the club virtually every day, but never seem to lose any weight. Now, I've seen this man at this club on many occasions, but I've yet to see him actually work out. He's convinced himself that by being there every day, he's doing something worthwhile. Yet he's missing the boat entirely. He never seems to do the critical inch, the exercise. If we're not careful, it's easy to fall into the same basic trap with our business and money-making efforts. We may look busy and do quite a few things during the course of a day, but we might not be focusing on the one or two things that really make a difference. Some of the most successful people I know work only a few hours a day, but boy, do they understand the concept of the critical inch. When you do what's truly necessary and important, the rest seems to fall into place. Take a moment each day to reevaluate your priorities. Make sure you spend your time doing that which is going to create success and abundance in your life. Chapter 23, Express your gratitude towards others. When it comes right down to it, there are very few sure things in life. Once in a while, however, we come across an idea that is an absolute, always, no matter what, truism. This is one of them, and a good one to remember. As long as our expression of gratitude is genuine, other people love it and remember it. This not only makes them feel good, but it also encourages them to help us again and to encourage others to do the same. The people we remember to thank in person with a thoughtful note or gesture or a phone call are infinitely more likely to help us again than those we take for granted and or neglect to thank. It's so obvious, yet so few people really understand how this works. People are inherently good. Most people love helping others, reaching out, lending a hand, offering assistance. For the most part, people love to be remembered or thought of as the person who gave someone else their big break or some other form of important, loving guidance. The other side of the coin, however, is that people love to be acknowledged, admired, and thanked. People love to be thanked not out of any selfish need, but simply because it feels good to be acknowledged. And when we are sincerely acknowledged, the acknowledgement acts as a reinforcement that we have done the right thing. Thus, we want to do it again, because people love to reach out to help others. If we thank them for their kindness, it actually nudges them to encourage others to help us too. Life becomes infinitely easier when we remember to thank others for their acts of kindness. Many wonderful people have stepped forward to help me in my career and in my life. Whether I have asked for help or received it without request, I always try to remember to express my gratitude. Although I never thank people in order to get something in return, I have found that thanking people from the heart guarantees that more help is just around the corner. None of us wants to be taken for granted. We all love to be thanked. The next time you do something really nice or helpful for someone and they thank you, take note of how it makes you feel. While it's true there are many instances where you would help again without any thanks, those of us who have children know this. I'll bet you'll find yourself even more willing to help someone who expresses their gratitude, which is, of course, also one of the keys to a joyful life. By engaging in constant gratification or gratitude, you'll be guaranteeing success, abundance, and happiness. Chapter 24. Leave a great impression, not just a good one. I guess you could say that this strategy is the opposite of don't burn any bridges concept. The feeling others have for you can be a critical element of success. In all cases, when people have a nice feeling toward you, it sets you apart and gives you an ethical, well-deserved advantage in all you do. This doesn't mean you should pretend to be someone you're not, only that you recognize that your presence, behavior, integrity, and kindness will leave a lasting imprint in the minds of those you are with. I once heard an audio tape from Ken Blanchard called Raving Fans. In it, he described the importance of setting yourself apart by creating customers who don't simply like your product or service, but actually rave about it and you. This strategy is the interpersonal version of creating raving fans. When people think of you, you want them to genuinely want to do business, spend time with, or help you. You want your customers, clients, coworkers, colleagues, even competitors to think and speak of you to others very highly. The way to do this is very simple. Make living your life with absolute integrity and kindness your first priority. Put others first whenever you possibly can. Be genuinely interested in the lives of other people. Be very present, moment-oriented with others. Look them in the eye and really focus on what they're saying. Care about them as individuals. Ask about their families. Listen, listen, listen. Finally, make your actions match your good intentions. Stand out from the crowd. Be the one to thank your customers and the people with whom you work. Send a card or a thoughtful note, even flowers if it's appropriate. Make people remember you in a positive light. If you implement this strategy with your own unique touches, and if you are genuine in your thoughts and actions, you will create over time a stellar 1 in a million reputation with virtually everyone you come in contact with. People will be beating down your door for the opportunity to work with or even to spend time with you. What's more, your life will be filled with more joy and loving kindness than you ever thought possible. Chapter 25. Maintain wealth consciousness. Developing wealth consciousness is what this book is all about. Wealth consciousness suggests a complete absence of money worries, an awareness that there is always plenty of money to go around. People who live with true abundance never worry about having enough. They know that creating wealth and affluence is a function of their own mindset. Worry keeps us from feeling free and joyful. We are never truly free until we break the chains of fear. But once we do, our lives will never be the same. A life without worry is a life of abundance, a life well lived. That which we focus our attention on expands. If we spend our mental energy worrying, it's difficult, if not impossible, to create great abundance. Our fear gets in the way of our creativity and traps us in the status quo. In other words, our fear interferes with our means of creation. On the other hand, if we are free of worries, if we maintain wealth consciousness, money will flow to us in inexhaustible ways. We will literally create ways to keep money flowing in our direction. Our antennas will be on the lookout for new and exciting opportunities, and our minds will be open to embrace them. The most important point about wealth consciousness can be summed up with the adage, don't put the cart before the horse. Make no mistake about it, wealth consciousness comes first. You will not suddenly develop wealth consciousness if and when you become wealthy. It's the other way around. You develop wealth consciousness by eliminating worry, by trusting in the universe and in your own inner resources. Once you secure your wealth consciousness, true abundance is just around the corner. Chapter 26. Wait for inspiration. Ironically, it's often the case that the best use of our time is to do absolutely nothing, to not act, to simply wait for an answer. But in our speeded up, frantic culture, most of us panic, and if we aren't actively doing something, even if that something isn't wise, productive, or useful, most of us are so busy, or at least looking busy, that we can't see or hear our own wisdom. Built into our psyche is a wealth of wisdom. We all have innate common sense at our disposal that can provide us with solutions, inspiration, and guidance. The problem is we must quiet down enough to hear it. We must wait for inspiration. To access our innate health takes some humility and getting used to. We must be willing to admit that we don't know what to do at a given moment. We must learn to be a little patient. It's worth the wait. The simple act of admitting that you don't know an answer at present activates your inner wisdom and guidance. By simply being willing to wait for inspiration, you virtually guarantee that it will come, in most cases rather quickly. Not always, but sometimes your mind needs a few minutes, occasionally longer, to cultivate the most appropriate answer. The answers you receive, however, will surprise and delight you. Your thinking and instincts will rise to a new level. Chapter 27. Use the power of reflection. Reflection is one of the most underused yet powerful tools for success. It is a passive way to pinpoint solutions and strategies with the least amount of effort or wasted energy. It's the opposite of trying too hard, of forcing an answer. Reflection is more a matter of allowing an answer to unfold right before your eyes, often with little or no effort on your part. One of the benefits of reflection is that it enables us to get our egos out of the way. In a quiet state of mind, we are able to see things clearly, including our own contributions to problems, new ways of doing things, and the ways we get in our own way. Reflection allows us to sense our self-imposed limitations and some of the blind spots in our thinking. Reflection is simply a matter of getting out of your own way. It's about quieting down your own mind so that answers can arise within the quietness. Often, when we're looking for an answer, we turn up the volume of our thinking. This might be called active problem solving. We think, and then we think some more. We get personally involved in the process. We take the credit for finding solutions and the blame when we cannot. For the most part, when we are actively thinking, we're thinking about that which we already know, that which we are familiar. We try to solve a problem at the same level of understanding that initially created it, and often we go around in circles. People who regularly use reflection, on the other hand, understand that we are connected to and a part of a deeper intelligence. This quiet source of wisdom is available to all of us in unlimited doses because it is always present. The only factor preventing us from hearing or being connected to this wisdom is the noise or chatter of our own thinking. When we turn the volume of our thinking down, we can begin to sense this deeper intelligence. This is reflection. Recently, I was engaged in an interpersonal conflict with someone I was working with. In my mind, I was blaming him for virtually all of our problems. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I was that the problem was him. It got so bad that I considered breaking up the partnership, which to that point had been very successful. My wife, Chris, suggested I stop thinking about it entirely and postpone making any decisions. She suggested instead that I take a drive and spend some time in quiet reflection. I took her advice. As I quieted down, it became clear to me that a great deal of our problems were actually coming from me. I could see how I was contributing to our poor communication and unrealistic expectations. You may be shocked at how easily most problems can be solved when you simply step out of the way by quieting down. You may also be pleasantly surprised at the ease with which new and creative ideas will flow into your life. Although your mind will be quiet, it won't be turned off. Instead, you will be using a new part of your mind, a softer, wiser part that understands the path of least resistance and the source of new answers. Success is often a function of doing something exceptionally well or more creatively than it has been done before. Reflection is a powerful vehicle to bring this about. Chapter 28. Laugh at your mistakes and you won't repeat them. Have you ever noticed that the more seriously you take your mistakes, the more you make them? And the more seriously you take your problems, the more you create them? This is because your behavior follows your attention just as surely as baby puppies follow their mother. Wherever the bulk of your energy lies, your behavior is sure to follow. When your mind is full of confusing or conflicting details, mistakes, and problems, your attention is riveted in a negative direction. Thus, when you make a big deal out of something you have done wrong, when you take yourself too seriously, you are actually setting the stage to repeat the mistake. Mental energy is a very powerful and potentially useful tool. However, energy cuts both ways. If your energy is directed exclusively toward problems and concerns, that is what you will see and what you will tend to create. If your energy is abundant, however, your mind will be in a more creative mode, searching for solutions, seeing opportunities, building on strengths. Your mind will be open to suggestions, to new and better ways of doing things. You will have a winning attitude. In terms of expanding energy, it is far more powerful to be in favor of something positive than to be against something negative. For peace instead of against violence, for excellence instead of against mediocrity. A decision to make light of your mistakes, to remain lighthearted, doesn't mean you don't care that you're not concerned with making an error. It simply means that you refuse to compound a problem by making a bigger deal out of something than is absolutely necessary. It means that you understand the value of keeping your perspective and sense of humor even in the face of adversity. In every mistake, there is the potential for growth. Inherent in every problem, there is a solution. When you take the process too seriously, however, you interfere with your ability to see answers. The next time you make a mistake, instead of dealing with it in your usual way, chuckle at yourself instead. You will be surprised at how quickly and easily you're able to resolve the issue. Chapter 29, Take Your Lunch. Although you or the person you live with might worry about the effort or time it takes to prepare a lunch, there are some potentially valuable benefits to doing so. Consider this. Suggest to one or more of your friends at work that you would like to do an experiment for a couple of days. The experiment would be that each of you bring your lunch and, depending on weather and other factors, plan to go to a nearby park, lake, hilltop, or some other interesting setting to eat. The idea is to then combine the lunch group with an investment club where you exchange ideas and investment options. Depending on the structure of the group, members can take turns bringing special food items. Not only can this be a great deal of fun and a lot healthier than eating at a restaurant, but enormously profitable as well. For example, if you stayed on the job for 30 years and substituted a $2 lunch for a $7.50 lunch at a local restaurant, the $5.50 per day savings deposited in an investment club earning 8% over 30 years would amount to around $100,000. And those of us who eat at restaurants frequently know these numbers are extremely conservative. Even if your investment club met only 2 or 3 times per week, the door would be open for some new, worry-free ways to create wealth. One of the goals in creating your club is to create the discipline and mindset for regular investing. Once you are thinking in terms of investing instead of spending, you can duplicate this process in other areas. A small bonus from your employer, for example, can be spent on consumer items, or it can be invested in your new account to make it grow. The same is true with a taxed refund, a surprise gift from a relative, even accumulated pocket change. Anytime you come across a little extra money, you may find yourself investing in your future. Over time, your earnings can be extraordinary. Once you have established this type of wealth-building mindset, the benefits will continue to grow. You will find yourself making different types of financial decisions that pay off in really big ways. You may decide to buy term insurance instead of whole life, and, unlike so many others, you will actually invest the difference. You may choose a more affordable automobile and, rather than feeling deprived, actually feel excited that you get to invest the difference in yourself. You'll discover that investing in this manner is a great deal of fun. Rather than worrying about your future, you'll be making joyful choices to secure a worry-free life. Who would believe that bringing your lunch to work could be such a profitable thing to do? Chapter 30. Ask for what you want. Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul, call this simple strategy the Aladdin factor. It's astonishing what you can accomplish by simply asking for what you want. Help, a raise, forgiveness, an idea, another chance, a break, or whatever. And not only can you get what you want by asking for it, but often the person you are asking will thank you for taking the initiative. If it's so obviously helpful and important to ask for what we want, why do so few of us do it? Once again, the answer is fear. We worry about the outcome. We're afraid of rejection, or a negative response. We might be worried about offending someone or being perceived of as weak or of taking advantage of our relationship. We may feel we don't deserve help. For a multitude of reasons, we allow past negative experiences and our own made-up fears to taint our present opportunities. Several years ago, I had the realization that one of my own greatest assets was my willingness to help others. Hundreds of times I've returned calls to complete strangers or written a response to one of their questions. With friends and family, my willingness to help is even greater. Whenever possible, within reason, I'm there to help. I realize that helping others, often offering assistance, doing favors, feeling needed and wanted is a deep and important human need. It feels wonderful to be needed. This being the case, I realize that, for the most part, other people feel the same way. Despite our fears and concerns to the contrary, it's actually quite arrogant and self-righteous to assume that others aren't as willing to help. I'm not the only nice guy around. What in the world was I thinking? The key in asking for something, large or small, is to be sincere in your belief. Deep down, others want to help you. You must approach your request by assuming that the person you are asking is just like you. He or she has an inner longing to be of help. This simple insight about the goodwill of others dramatically speeded up my path to success, as it will yours. It meant that I no longer had to do everything myself. I didn't have to develop all my ideas and projects on my own. There were plenty of others more than willing to pitch in and offer their expertise, assistance, and advice. Today, when I ask someone to sit down with me and share an idea, it often sparks ideas that help them as well. What goes around comes around. Those who are willing to help others are always paid back in one way or another. Obviously, this isn't a prescription to run out and take advantage of people. To think in these terms would be to miss the whole point of this strategy. Your own good judgment will prevent you from doing this. Once you remove the fear of asking for help, your wisdom and common sense will instruct you when and how to ask. Rather than being afraid to ask for help, remember this. When you ask someone to help you, you are actually doing them a tremendous favor by giving them an opportunity to feel needed. Beginning today, rub your magic lamp and experiment with the Aladdin factor. Chapter 31. Short circuit your reaction spirals. It's a rare person who can avoid the trap of reaction spirals. That is, the insidious tendency to overreact to something and then compound the problem by overanalyzing it. Here is a typical example. Someone criticizes some aspect of your work. You overreact to the criticism and become defensive. As if that weren't bad enough, you spend the next half hour analyzing the critical comments, convincing yourself they are incorrect. A whirlwind of thoughts pass through your mind. You focus on them. The more you do, the worse you feel, and the more tired you become. The question is, how effective are you when you're feeling overwhelmed, defensive, and stubborn? The truth is, in a negative state of mind, we expend unnecessary energy, make very poor decisions, and lose our creativity and sense of joy. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could nip these reaction spirals in the bud? You can. The trick is to see them coming and to commit in advance to short-circuiting them. With every negative reaction comes a negative feeling, a feeling of irritation, annoyance, or impatience. We often use these feelings to justify further negativity. For example, we say to ourselves something like, I have a right to be angry. Now that we're focused on our anger, we think about other instances that make us angry, and so on. This fuels our negative feelings and creates a negative spiral. If, instead of compounding our negative feelings, we use them as a signal to alert us to potential trouble, we will be in a much better position to stop the cycle before it got out of hand. The other day, for example, I was waiting for an important phone call. I waited and waited. In my mind, I was certain that the person I was waiting for had agreed to call me at a certain time on a specific phone line. I had canceled other plans to make time for her. Her understanding, however, was that I was to call her. Because I was on the other line while waiting for her call, I didn't phone her either. Finally, she called, and when she did, she was extremely angry at me. Instantly, I became defensive and angry myself. How dare she? I thought to myself. I was enraged. What saved me was my ability to use my negative feelings as an proactive alarm. Like a flashing light, I was reminded to calm down, which allowed me to see our mutual innocence. One of us had made a mistake. Big deal. Moments after I became angry, a little voice inside my head said, relax. Don't turn this into a bigger deal. Within a few moments, I regained my perspective and simply apologized. Honestly, I have no way of knowing who was at fault, and who cares? The point is, had I continued in my reaction spiral, I would have clearly jeopardized my working relationship with this person. As it turned out, our little misunderstanding was a non-issue. We both were able to get past it in a matter of seconds. No wasted energy, no heated debate, no unnecessary discussion, no defensive or passive-aggressive behavior. Many potential problems can be averted with this simple strategy. All you really need is the wisdom to understand that negative reactions aren't in your best interest, and the humility and willingness to back off and start over. Abundance is a joyful path. Occasionally, however, we lose our way. Don't waste your precious energy compounding an already negative situation. You'll be amazed at how much smoother your life will become and how easily you can get back on track when you short-circuit your reaction spirals. I want to thank you guys for staying on this journey with me, finishing up chapters 16 through 31. If these chapters brought value to you, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and possibly hit the bell so that you get more alerts when this video and these videos come to you each week. I love doing these audiobooks because they bring so much value to me that I just hope and pray that you gain as much out of them as I do. Once again, I thank you for listening. I'm your jack of all trades, and until next time, get money, people.